And this is always positive when we have great self-mastery, because the outcome that you will have is that you will lead a better life because you are always in a growth mindset to improve yourself.
I think we're all guilty of it. I speak on behalf of all three of us. we
Thank you.
with the social media, sometimes we get a bit distracted.
Yeah.
So what I have done,
Absolutely.
I have disconnected it from the phone. So I don't see any pop-ups. I don't see it on my apps. I've removed it. I have to physically go into the app to check it.
There is no tiger.
There's no tiger. Exactly. There might be a snake, but there's no tiger or spider.
You can see and you can feel the happiness happening there. You know why? Because they feel I've been seen as a human. I've been acknowledged as a human.
We all try to be heroes, but then where's the human element?
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to From Hero to Human. Our podcast is not your regular podcast. We are founded on values of authenticity, transparency, science, and we bring guests who are expert in the field of healthcare and beyond, and they bring expertise, knowledge, and skills that will help you navigate through stress, burnout, and mental health, and transform into your best self.
Super excited, and thank you, Nina, to be again in this space. Welcome to From Hero to Human. Another exciting guest, and I keep saying this, but when we choose our guest speakers, we look, number one, for the energetic match. So there needs to be a synergy between us. We don't necessarily need to agree on the topic, because I also want to get challenged in this discussion, broaden my horizon and really learn new things. So today's guest, if I was to read Professor Immanuel Azaad Moonesar's bio, it would have taken me maybe 45 minutes. So I became smart to shorten his huge career and the influence that he is having in the space of healthcare leadership, well-being, mental health, to a few sentences. And then obviously we're going to give him a chance to tell us really who he is as a human and how he arrived in this beautiful space and how he is now doing all these amazing things for the community out there. So Professor Immanuel Azaad Moonesar is a powerhouse of insights at the intersection of healthcare leadership, sustainable development, and well-being. And with over 255 publications and also $4.8 million in research funding and a deep expertise in healthcare policy, system research, and well-being, he is shaping a global conversation on how we lead, fund, and future-proof healthcare. For me, this is already huge. So, Professor Immanuel, welcome to From Hero to Human, and we are really proud, we are grateful actually that you have accepted this invitation and that we can learn from you and expand our horizons. At the same time, we can share a lot of research, tips, raise awareness, and contribute to that positive change in our ecosystem.
Well, firstly, congratulations on this innovative podcast that you've been doing from Hero to Human. It is very insightful, and I feel truly honored to be here on this podcast with you both, Nina and Magda. So Emmanuel simply means God with us. For me personally, so I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, and I've had quite a challenging insight to my birth. I was born premature, and I was always fighting, trying to stay alive and so forth. To put it in summary, fast forward a bit, I've always had an inclination to the overall well-being, quality of life. We tend to focus on, that physical element, but sometimes we tend to forget that we have the emotional element, we have the spiritual element, we have your state of mind and so forth, and it goes on and on. And I always questioned my parents being quite religious. We were in the religious institutions for quite a number of years. And, just going back and forth with health and spiritual and physical and so forth, I always questioned these items. So for me as a youngster growing up, nutrition has always been part and parcel of my own physical self because of a specific condition that I had acquired, unfortunately. But I'm managing it, and it became part and parcel. And then my mom, also at a very early age in her marriage, she was diagnosed with cancer. So nutrition specifically was, part and parcel. And I saw the way, even as an 8-year old, how it was being managed. And I thought, look, I need to do something, even at this early age. So I got the interest into nutrition, into overall well-being, state of mind, emotional, spiritual, this whole cocktail, as we would like to call it, as a whole. So this is what sparked my interest initially in the very early ages.
I love how you said that you had the inclination to understand more about not just the physical perspective, the mental, the spiritual perspective. And as you know, as we are living in a very high, fast-paced world nowadays where technology is leading, and we as human beings have to thrive in environments that are probably not meant for us, but we have to because this is how it's going to be. So, and in healthcare, for example, where me and Magda are working, and I'm sure you have been into that as well, there's a lot of pressures that we face, and there's a lot of thoughts about being, superhuman and just keep going. And this affects us. It affects the way we are, and it affects everything we do. What is your take about mental health in general, and especially mental health in the workplace?
Very good, very thought-provoking question. This is quite a loaded one. Mental health generally, for me personally, it it really resonates from not only physically, emotionally, spiritually. It all goes back to self-care. So sometimes, and I like that one of the trigger words for me that sparks this mental health, let's call it for simplicity, definition in my thought is that superhuman, right? Where we all try to be heroes, but then where's the human element where we bring together our own physical element, our emotional, and so forth. So it's let's just say it's quite a holistic package, which we tend to take for granted. It inquires your sleep, your eating, your nutritional content, your resting, which is also important. And sometimes this superhuman element doesn't take that into consideration, especially among healthcare workers and professionals. We work in very high intensity environments, right? Especially ED, the crisis, the trauma, across the entire hospital, generally speaking, clinics. And especially in this day and age we live in, we don't even have to the chance to stop and have a little drink of water. Hydration is also quite critical. So it falls into that whole cocktail of or mocktail of mental health definition, right? So and it really goes into that element. Now, touching on the point of your keeping up with the digitalization and the technologies, this in itself, from my own point of view, and I have faced it many times, and even on a personal level, you can get quite depressed about this. You see what your friends and family and everyone's doing. You feel as though you have to match to the expectations. And, I was thinking, many of us, we try to be heroes, aka influencers, right? And I mean, I love traveling. I love traveling. I love talking about health, little, just trying to uplift life among those around us. But sometimes when I have to put a blog out or a video for my Instagram, it's it can be lonesome, right? You have to walk the narrow and straight paths, do these things lonely and so forth. But when someone looks at this inspiring Instagram post,
Yeah.
for instance, or TikTok and so forth, they say, "Oh wow," and
This is helpful.
it gives quite a positive outlook. But what about the emotions to reaching to getting this particular positive outlook? Recently, I had the opportunity to visit the Castaway Island, where the movie was shot in Fiji. And it got me thinking. Of course, this might be a buzzkill for everybody, but it brought a reality to me. While you looked at this movie, you got the impression that the actor was alone on this island
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But truthfully, on the other side of the island, there's a whole village of multiple different islands, right? And many times that put into perspective for me. Sometimes we look into one direction, and when we do have a whole village to help us along the way. So I've digressed a bit, but just to go back to the definition, so it's quite holistic, from physical, from that whole self-care element, emotions, spiritual, as well as connections. This is what we all strive to have in point. So that's my, let's say, humble definition of mental health.
It's a beautiful definition, and actually, it has the humor and it has the human touch. We are not talking here in this platform about dictionary definitions because that would be too easy and no one would listen to us. So, every human being that comes to this discussion with us really brings a beautiful perspective and a beautiful energy. And when we are talking and challenging openly the superhero notion, and then thank you for mentioning, your experience on the so-called deserted island and then a crowd being behind you, because this is the illusion of social media. Being positive, I try to really find a way and learn from our guests how we can look at that narrative that is telling us, you need to do this, you need to do that, she's better than you, this influencer is saying this influencer is saying that. And when I listened to a few psychiatrists recently at one of the conferences, they were saying that majority of the patients showing up in their clinic, they are depressed because of what they see in the digital reality. Yeah. So how do we, I don't know, protect ourselves from this? How can the human understand that this snapshot, this picture is not the full reality out there?
Well, first of all, have more discussions like this.
Yeah.
Awareness, it's, to create this, one of the backbones to public health campaigns, it's creating the awareness. And many times we get bogged down, or we get attracted, let's just use the word attracted. We are attracted to this false reality, which is created, So the awareness would be one of those elements. So continue the great work that you both has been doing, and among many others that are also in the same sphere. Secondly, it's really having that conversation, that connection with persons, to even our own personal friends and family as well, to bring to light, like, okay, that's not the reality here, come on, let's stop and just assess what's happening there. Thirdly, I would say it would be all about how do we unpack this particular messaging, right? So the messaging wants for us to create this hope, right? But the reality is, all good things comes with a struggle, irregardless. So we need to also change the narrative of this to help show, or to showcase the struggles that we've faced along the journey, to see the obstacles that, as we've seen when a marathon runner is doing their achievements. It takes, we don't see it. They wake up at 4 in the morning, running for 2 3 hours. I have very close friends that does it. The most I can do at this point is a 10K. So, but I know my limits, so I'm human. But they would do the marathon under 2 hours, for instance, or 2 hours and 15 minutes, and so forth. But to get to that point, the struggle there. So just trying to document and even sharing those struggles, and then even though things doesn't go the way we want it, what are the lessons learned from it? That's also key there. Sometimes we would say, okay, this keeps happening repeatedly over and over. Why? What are those lessons learned on those points there?
I love how you talked about struggle, and it brings to my thought the idea of self mastery. Because when we know who we are at a deep level, it's kind of helped us to know the internally the experience that we have to align to our deeper self and how we present ourselves to the world. It's important for us to master our emotions and actions, and it's important for us to go deep inside and understand insightfully how we operate and who we are. And to do that, it requires constant improvements and constant focus on the matters that are important to us. And in thinking about self mastery, we think about the self management and the self discipline, which is leading your life in the right way. We think about being, which is the self awareness that you mentioned. We think about the way we think, the way we communicate, the way we do things. And this is always positive when we have great self mastery, because the outcome that you will have is that you will lead a better life because you are always in a growth mindset to improve yourself. You are always thinking of what's the best out there and how can I overcome. And that's in itself being human, being the true human that you are, in addition to having all the personalities, the characteristics that you require to thrive and to become even stronger and better. And one of the things that is great here in the UAE is that, for example, this year is the year of community. And there's a lot of talk about community and how we can cultivate that. What's your take on this regard?
Well, the UAE, firstly, I would say I'm quite, well, we all are quite blessed to be living here and to be part of the fabric of this innovation and the way forward. That's firstly. Secondly, the UAE, as we know, we have over 200 different nationalities live here, which creates this opportunity to meet different cultures. Over 140 different languages are being spoken as well. So with such a cosmopolitan country with all of these varying backgrounds, it really creates this goodwill community, as we would like to say. And since 2014, the UAE has been dedicating a year of a specific topic. This year, as you've rightfully said, is about community. So it's all about service to the community. We as public sector employees, private sector employees, non-governmental organization employees, and so forth, we all serve a purpose in the country. So what is our role to serve the community? At the end of the day, like I ask myself, I even say to my students, most of them work in the public sector. I say we work for the people. We work for the citizens and the residents of the country, of the people of the region as well, and the world at large. So it's a very great initiative. It also helps to break certain stereotypes. It helps to strengthen the community as a whole. So it's great, just sitting here, we all come from varying backgrounds.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we speak multiple different languages, so then in itself, it gives us that opportunity to learn and to build our knowledge with each other. Additionally, trying to seeing that, this notion of a one size fit all box with a community, once we foster this community, it really helps us to unpack this black box of a one size fit all box, So it helps us to see that there are many different elements, and the way we need to approach situations, the way we manage stress would be varied. So such an initiative would really help us to unpack different persons, not only just to see from a hero's point of view, but from a people's point of view, from a heart, to say, okay, there's actually blood running in that person's body, there's some emotions there. So I think it's a very great initiative as a whole.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely.
And I believe there is no coincidence in UAE choosing 2025 to be the year of community, because when we look at what is going on in the mental health epidemic globally, and then we have also a lot of concerning numbers with regards to workplace loneliness epidemic. This is the antidote. When people come together and we go back to the roots and we sit around the campfire, we start the conversation. Very often is as little as holding space for someone else. People don't want big advice or even contributions. They want to feel that they are heard, that someone sees them as the human, as you said, that there is blood flowing inside. So again, we are not reinventing the wheel here. It's just going back to the roots, what we used to do in the prehistoric era, when there was no digital media, where the life was very basic, and how people were managing the states. I don't want to trivialize it and say, nothing was going on there. There were the tigers, hiding in the woods and other things going on. But back then, there wasn't any digital distraction, okay? There wasn't so much stimulus that we have in the current reality. So it used to be the tiger then, but now is the WhatsApp pinging every 2 seconds, let's say in a duration of a 10-hour day. So how do we upgrade our human skills? Because I very often challenge the notion that we haven't upgraded our human skills to deal with the reality that we have created. So we have elevated the AI. We all want to become the masters of AI, but we need to start with being the masters of human intelligence and human skills first.
Yes, I mean, for personally, one tip that I usually do is, I think we're all guilty of it. I speak on behalf of all three of us. we
Thank you.
with the social media, sometimes we get a bit distracted and so forth. But for me, when I see this phone with all these different apps, and you have all these notifications, you have X amount of emails, X amount of WhatsApp messages, and so forth. The notification, for me, is a huge distraction.
Yeah.
So what I have
Absolutely.
done, I have disconnected it from the phone. So I don't see any pop-ups. I don't see it on my apps. I've removed it. I have to physically go into the app to check it.
There is no tiger.
There's no tiger. Exactly. There might be a snake, but there's no tiger or spider, which would be great. But there is so that's something that, because I struggled, because if I see that there's a notification of a specific app, I would feel inclined that I have to respond to it. If I don't see it, I don't see it. I mean, it's only human. You have your downtime. The other thing is, so this is one way I kind of purge myself. It's very difficult.
Yes.
The other is my phone is periodically on silent. On silent. I say, if you really need to get me, you know how to get me. Right? So
Knock on my door.
that too, but there's many other different ways.
Yeah.
You can reach someone in times of distress, and most times, the way we have defined calamity and crisis today versus 30 years ago, 40 years ago, is completely different. The way we define it. This is from my personal observation. So this is one of those skills, I think, starting from an individual point of view, is is trying to acknowledge, look, whether or not you are a slave to this device, for instance. The other is how many times we go to dinner, we have family dinners, we have parties, friends over, and then all of a sudden we said hi, hello, kiss, kiss, kiss. You serve a beverage, there's something to nibble on, you chit chat in a little corner and so forth, and then all of a sudden we all on our phones, and then you look around and the music is playing, very lovely music. The food looks appealing, and everyone is on their phone, smiling and laughing, gibble, gibble, gibble. And you have a room of persons, and we are guilty of this. So, also recognizing that if it's a problem for those individuals, for me personally, I want that connection. But this is where it really starts with our individual selves. Now, if we translate this to the workplace, it's a different story, right? Some meetings that I have been to, it's frowned upon to have your phone on the table with you. You know, we are having an important discussion. There's no need for a phone. We only need half an hour of your time. You know, this sort of thing, right? So it's really trying to get that sort of discipline on that front. Those are some of the initial things that I can think of for that digital detox.
Nice.
I love the digital detox because for me it's very similar. Like on Sundays, I choose not to even look at the phone because it really drains me. It really, because every time I hear that notification, I'm like, what's happening now? I need to get to it. I need to get it sorted and so on. And it really affects your mental health, right? And one question I wanted to ask you, because I think you've done a lot of work on policies, and for things to change, there should be something strong to drive it. And I think when it comes to the mental health space, it's important to have strong structures that guide people of how to do, especially whether it's in organizations or whether it isn't as a national level. Because if we look at the Cigna report for the UAE when it came to well-being, we would understand that they have seen that vitality is still high. I mean, the energy to actually go and do your job. But when it comes to well-being in all its aspects, it's still declining. So what are the policies that are required for us to actually embrace and to actually start intentionally using them in healthcare, in workplaces, in organizations, in different industries?
Okay, so this is quite a loaded question. So I will start with first the understanding of the organization itself. You have very small organizations, to large ones. So it all depends on that, keeping that in mind, because again, one size fits all policies don't
work.
necessarily work. So if we talk, first of all, there's a notion of flexible working, for instance, right? To have create this work-life balance. However, we are under the umbrella of having a work-life balance, flexible working hours. There should also be some standards and regulations and rules towards this setting up of a policy. To what extent is working from home versus your family life? You know, how can you stop in between this? You know, so I think clearer definitions of this. We've seen successes in multiple countries across the world that has implemented this. I'll take Sweden as an example. France has as well. If you send an email outside of certain working hours, specified industries as well, you can get a warning, for instance, right? And so forth. So I don't think that would necessarily work here, but you know, just having a guide with respect to flexible working hours. And again, it goes to the industry. So as healthcare professionals, we don't have an 8 to 4 job, right? Healthcare is ongoing. Emergencies are ongoing. Crises are ongoing. But just trying to define that space for these individuals to work in and to best manage it. This would be one of those policies. Also, at the Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government where I'm at, there is quite an intrigued initiative called the Happiness Council, right? So, yes, employees respond to intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. We know of this in theory, but in the practicality, what do people feel appreciate? People feel very appreciated through different means. So this council was set up to reward employees ad hoc on special projects, on various initiatives that has happened, just ad hoc items. Reward with small little things, a gift voucher to the mall, a gift voucher to a hotel stay for a couple nights, and so forth. There's a specific budget to this. It's the same well-being budget or employee from the HR training budgets and so forth. However, just repackaging it into a different portfolio. And this initiative's been running for almost, I think, 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I always smile when I get nominated because we have this box and you have these little balls. You put your hand into the box and you pull this ball out. There's a QR code and then it tells you, okay, wow, you've won this. And it's
encouraging.
It's very encouraging.
Yeah.
Even letters of appreciation.
Yeah.
And it does not necessarily has to be a physical gift as well. Sometimes I go to the office and I just have a little card. Remember, today's a new day. Smile. It's infectious. That from the Happiness Council. And it just takes those small little initiatives. I would think also understanding that empathy is important.
Wow.
We are very much, our performance are driven by KPIs, key performance indicators, and so forth. These hardcore items.
Yeah.
But also forgetting that empathy with ourselves. We also have issues. We have family, we have friends. We too feel ill as well. We have our moments, emotions up and down. So there will be those times. So, and having that element of empathy as well within the workplace. We know there would be some individuals that would probably misuse it, abuse it, but generally speaking, just having that element embedded within the workplace culture. And it all starts from the top. Yes. And then it cascades. It's like a domino effect.
Yes.
So those would be my 3 quick policies.
Fixes.
I mean, we have a list, but yeah.
It's super important to highlight the fact that, yes, even if you have a policy that is mandating well-being in organization or happiness, there isn't a prescription. And Nina and myself, we always joke, and this is not a joke, actually, there isn't a prescription for well-being. So I think I've asked one of the professors as well before, would it be possible to mandate well-being? I mean, we don't want to end up with activity that it is a tick box exercise because something is mandated from the top. And we also know that people support what they help create. And here I have a very powerful example from a healthcare organization when I used to work back in Kuwait. And that was management actually listened to the people, okay? I used to also challenge before I give the story that we are doing in organizations satisfaction survey. It's exactly the same survey for 10 years. And when we ask those who are participating, people don't understand half of the questions. So how can you measure the results and then go to create an improvement plan on something that people don't understand and you yourself don't have a clue as a leader? So when the management asked healthcare workers, nurses in that hospital, what would make you more happy or your well-being would improve, the nurses said, can you please improve the quality of our breakfast? Because when you work on a shift that is 8 hours plus, you would be provided with breakfast and lunch. So the nurses said, can we have 2 hard-boiled eggs and a slice of rye toast instead of the fully loaded carb and fat breakfast that you used to serve? management listened and they've implemented it the very same week. Okay, and you can see and you can feel the happiness happening there. You know why? Because they feel I've been seen as a human. I've been acknowledged as a human. So these interventions is cheap.
Yes.
It's easy to implement. And this is probably challenging the notion that well-being strategy is something magical and huge and fluffy and I don't really know where to start. Ask your people.
Which is quite it's very good initiative and response from the management side, because nutrition tied to anyone's working, regardless of they being in healthcare and so forth, but it helps to make the decision making process. It helps to make your work much more efficient and so forth. So this is a very great initiative that they have done. It's quite important.
And so simple. I mean, it's going back to the basics, as we always say, looking at the easy fixes and the easy wins that you can have, and you can create that. And one of the things that I implemented at my workplace is wellness session, where I invite my team to not think about work, but to think about just being a human being. And we talk about anything that's going on in their life. And what I've seen is a lot of improvement in the way they present themselves and the way they are leading the other teams, because it's cascading, it's a ripple effect. And you see them now, most of them are talking about well-being and wellness. They've created a WhatsApp group where they actually challenge each other. Who's going to work out today more than the other person? And it's beautiful to see that, because it doesn't need that much, and yes, it starts from leadership, and I would love to see more of our leaders embracing well-being and embedding it into their daily lifestyle, and showing that this is the way to be. Because when you are well and happy and calm, guess what? You're gonna be inventing things like crazy, and you're gonna be seen as someone who is much powerful than the one who is drained and than the one who is running on autopilot. Absolutely.
Your productivity definitely goes up, and for those that it matters, your high productivity equals high revenue or return of investment, right? So it is also quite important. There was an article I read recently where you invest $1 into an individual's well-being, you get $5 in return. Whether it may not be direct, but indirect as well. So it's a combination of both. So, as HR managers, as directors out there, we may also want to think about it's an investment for not only the employee, but for the organization at large. It's the longevity of the organization. It's the health of the organization, the overall well-being of the organization in itself.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the language that we use. So how do we communicate, or how do we present to leaders and organizations that well-being is in your best interest, but is also translating into the bottom line? So let's not go, around the bush with it, but organizations need to make money. This is the top priorities. They need to scale, they need to bring new business, and this is how they can pay the salaries and so on. But, or however, when you look after your employees, they are happy, healthy. They are healthy. The well-being level is good. When it comes to healthcare, the patient is going to benefit, patient, family, and the whole ecosystem. That's why we are so passionate about healthcare, because we know how much of a systemic change we can bring. And I used to have situations in organizations that I used to work here in the UAE. As a manager in the unit, the patients would be asking, like, your nurses look stressed. Did they go for break? Patients are watching. They are human. They are observing other humans. And you can almost sense when you see a nurse running from one room to the other continuously, and you have noticed she hasn't left this unit for many, many hours. So how she is implementing the healthy brain diet? How is the nutrition going on if you are continuing in the hero narrative with the cape on, you continue running?
This is quite important.
So I think listening to the feedback also, not only providers, but the patients. And this is where very often we miss to get this crucial piece of information. Like, I always used to be fascinated with patients' complaints. Majority of people want to just close it, tick the box, quality department needs a report, done. Look who is the human behind it. It took me time, but I managed to realize that I am not the only one responsible, for example, in my unit when the patient is complaining, but it always goes to the nurse manager. So then, of course, I don't have a capacity to just sit there and all day deal with complaints. When you look closer, you can see the emotion that is coming in there. What is really going on with that patient? Why they are saying that something is not happening? So we designed something called patient service quality rounds. So at least once a week, I would take the whole team with me. So the housekeeper, the insurance, whoever is available, we will go and knock on patient's door. Of course, we cannot all go inside, but I will go, listen to the patient and, tell me what's going on, how can I help you, any good comments, any constructive, da-da-da. And they will tell me, for example, the food is coming cold, or the room is not clean up to the standard. And I was in a position to say, okay, I have someone here with me, let's try to solve it on the spot. And here I acknowledge the human.
Yes.
I did not listen or look through the label of a complainer. And in healthcare, I'm sorry, but we are guilty of assigning this label. Frequent flyer, frequent complainer, troublemaker, ta-da-da, ta-da-da, ta-da-da. But when you switch the approach and look at the human in front of you, that human, again, wants to feel listened to. And in healthcare, they want to feel that someone cares about them.
True. Yeah, the operative word is care, right?
Yes. So again, it's a simple solution for me, but sometimes we look at the magical, fluffy, huge concepts, what needs to happen. We try to improve patient experience without understanding the basics.
Absolutely,
Very
absolutely. I mean, as human beings, we should be seen as very valuable, and we're all a work in progress. We have a lot of flaws and we have a lot of strengths, and we have what it takes to actually change the whole world. I mean, look at people who have done what they've done with AI, or with stress management techniques, or, bringing these policies that we're talking about. And when we recognize and understand that value, it makes a huge difference. And for our listeners and audience and whoever watches Hero to Human, it's very important to understand that you matter, and self-care is a very important component of becoming the best version of yourself.
I would agree very much. And within self-care, sometimes we also need to take that downtime to reflect.
Yes.
To rest.
Yes.
I just came back from some self-care myself, and I did have a bit of digital detox. And the first day, I remember when I switched on my phone, because I switched it off and I put it into the safe in the hotel and just switched it off. I just told those that usually I'm in contact with, look, I'm going to be off the grid for a little while. I'm literally on an island somewhere, and so forth, but I'm just going to be off the grid. When I switched on, the first question is, are you okay? I haven't seen a post on Instagram. You didn't read my message on WhatsApp, and that's the operation behind this message. And I'm like, okay, are you okay? But then you went to the secondary and tertiary items, and sometimes too, how are you? Are you okay? Do we really mean that when we ask those persons?
Wow.
Because they're like, how are you? Oh, I wanted to get you. I needed you to get those reports.
Yeah.
You didn't give the person the opportunity to answer
actually-
how they are, and we're guilty of it.
Yeah.
But this is also important, is also respecting the rest time. And one of the things at work, where what they put they have one or two rooms, they call it rest room, literally a rest room, not the restroom as like the bathroom
Yeah.
or the washroom and so forth, but it's a restroom, a meditation room. You want to just reflect, and this is important. And one of the things that you mentioned, we do have our faults, we do have our strengths, but at the end of the day, every fault is a fashion.
Yeah.
I remember my grandmother used to always tell me that, son, every fault is a fashion, So I'm like, I always take my faults and make it a fashion, right? So going back to the what is the lesson learned from
Yeah.
this? How can I be better? What can I do if I was hit with this situation? Even when you hear of other persons in situations, what would I do in their case? How can I respond? So this is also quite critical for us to keep in mind. Resting and reflecting is also quite critical.
Thank you for bringing to our conversation the concept of conscious greeting. Hi, how are you? In Polish, I would say cześć, jak się masz? In South African culture, in the Ubuntu concept, there is a beautiful way that they greet each other and they simply say sawubona, means I see you. I see the human in you. And I remember, I've moved from Poland to UK. And British people have a specific way of greeting each other. Okay, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? For some reason, I could never embrace this concept, how are you? Even though after that, they were talking, this is happening, they talk about the weather, traffic on M25, and all the other beautiful concepts. Then I moved to the UAE, and I ended up in a culture, and I used to joke with my boss, a very senior guy. Hi, how are you, Magda? Hi, how are you, Magda? And I used to see him 25 days, let's say on a duration of an 8-hour working day. At some point, I made a comment and I said, you've just saw me 5 minutes ago. You again asked me, hi, how are you, without waiting for the answer. I'm not sure that he fully understood my sense of humor. Yeah. It was half joking, but something was already cooking inside for me to discover the Saubona concept and then really understand what is conscious greeting. Because the way I was presented this concept with was at an ethics coaching conference a couple of years ago, where the speaker really put it out there. What does it mean to be conscious when you are greeting the other human being? And again, this is going back to the roots.
Yes.
Because this African concept, as they explain, the Ubuntu is not solely African concept, because Ubuntu is everywhere where there is a human.
Wow.
So, Saubona, I see you. I see the human in you.
It's beautiful.
Wow. That's a beautiful statement.
And what's the greeting in your part of the world?
What going on? Right? It's like, what's going on? In French, we would say, well, ça va? Tout va bien? Just how are you? Is it all well? And what going on means, what's happening? What's the latest with you? But we do have that opportunity to respond, stop and respond. Then you chit chat for a bit, and you would have a little bit of a gossip as well on the road. But that's how we would do.
Nice one. And Nina, Arabic greeting.
So we have multiple Arabic greetings for sure. Now, from the Lebanese side, we will say marhaba.
Yes.
But the one that I love the most is assalamu alaikum, because this is infused with peace and love and kindness and all of the things that the human being needs to feel at peace, to feel valued, to feel seen, as you said, Magda. So this one really ticks the biggest box for me.
Of course.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
It's a powerful statement as well of peace.
Yes,
and unity.
absolutely.
What a beautiful conversation, really enriching the mind, body, and spirit. And this is why we are in this space. From Hero to Human is about challenging the hero narrative, but I also got challenged before, and I know that hero can be also a positive one. So it is not always the one who is burning out and getting stressed. Thank you, Professor Immanuel, for all the amazing insights, for sharing your story with us and doing it with a lot of humor, because storytelling needs this, fun upbeating almost energy for people to really grasp, okay, I understand this narrative. Maybe I can apply some of it in my own practice. Yes. So I am truly grateful for you coming to this discussion, and I'm sure there will be many more fruitful exchanges because I'm learning so much from this interaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. It was beautiful. It was calming.
Amazing. So, guys, I'm sure you like what you hear in here and you can feel and sense the energy. So do hit that subscribe button and share it with others. Our mission vision here with Nina and our guest on this podcast is to bring a positive change in our ecosystems. Not to issue prescriptions or blanket approaches, is just give people the opportunity to be acknowledged on a human level, present them with awareness, perhaps show them a few tips and solutions with a pinch of humor, and then they can find the best solutions for themselves. So do share it with others and let us all continue on that well-being journey, discovering what is working for us and what isn't. Till next time.